2015년 뉴욕타임스가 선정한 베스트셀러인 로봇의 부상'의 저자이기도 합니다. 로봇과 인공지능 기술의 발달로 인류의 미래가 어떤 변화를 맞게 될지 전 세계가 주목하고 있는데요. 오늘 인류의 미래는 어떻게 변화하고 그에 대한 대응은 어떻게 되어야 될지 마틴 포드 씨와 함께 이야기를 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. Mr. Martin Ford, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Before beginning our interview, why don't you say a few words to the viewers of the Leader?
Well, thank you very much for having me here in Korea. It's very exciting to be here, to meet the people here. I'm focused on the impact of technology worldwide. It's something that I think is going to have a big impact in every country in the world, but you know, Korea is a particularly advanced country. And I think that here we're going to see the impact of technology definitely as much as anywhere else. So I really hope that you'll find this of interest.
Thank you. Now, let's begin our interview. Actually, you are very famous here too because of your book, Rise of the Robot. Many people read the book. And we found that because of the ongoing digital transformation has impacted every corner of our economy and society, it is very important to characterize the trend of this digital transformation. So how can you characterize the trend of digital transformation?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's happening is that so much information is becoming digital, and now we have the technology to really use artificial intelligence to process that data. And what that means is that you know, algorithms are getting smart. They're starting to think, and they're starting to really replace our cognitive ability. And that's the thing that is really different, is that we've now got machines that in some sense can think and can take on intellectual power. And that's, I think, going to lead to a revolution, something we've never seen before.
Okay, you mentioned about this cognitive power of machine. So mankind has experienced a lot of technological revolutions. The steam engine, electricity, and personal computers. So do you think this time is different from those kind of inventions in the technological developments?
Well, I do think that this time is ultimately different from what we've seen in the past. Now, in the past, there were very big disruptions. I mean, just to give one example, think of what happened in agriculture. In most countries in the world, you know, most people worked on farm, you know, producing food. Then, of course, agricultural technology like tractors and combines and all the rest of it came along, and now only a tiny percentage of the workforce in advanced countries work on farms. So people did move on to other industries. But, you know, that was a disruptive technology, but it was also very narrow. It was specific to agriculture. What we have this time in the form of artificial intelligence especially is something that's going to be just incredibly broad-based. It's going to scale across everything. It's going to impact every industry, whether it's manufacturing or the service industries or really any area, and it's going to, you know, have a big disruption. So I think that together with the fact that this technology is now taking on that cognitive capability, it's replacing our brain power, not just our muscle power. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've never seen before in human history. So I do think it could lead to a bigger, much more disruptive outcome.
Yes, many people also believe that this time might be different. But at the same time, important issue is who could be the beneficiary of this digital transformation and who could be the victims of this digital transformation. So what is your view?
Well, you know, to some extent, everyone is certainly going to benefit because
Mm-hmm.
these technologies are going to make things that today are impossible possible. We're going to see amazing breakthroughs in medicine, right? So that could potentially improve everyone's health. We're going to have self-driving cars and trucks, and that's going to save thousands and thousands of lives because right now most traffic accidents occur because of human error. So, see, there are lots of good things that are going to be available to everyone, and we shouldn't forget that. But the thing that I've really focused on and worried about is that it's going to greatly increase inequality. And in terms of income, the people that are going to do the best are going to be people that are already wealthy, people that own lots of capital, the people that own businesses. What that really means is the people that in the future will own the robots, will own the machines. The rest of the people, the most average people, really they rely on their labor, right? For most people, the value of your labor, the work you do, is your main asset. That's the thing that is most valuable. And these trends are going to cause that to be devalued. It's going to make it worth less, right? So people are going to have less to trade. So my concern is that it will greatly increase inequality, and also a lot of people will really be left behind, and maybe some people in a really bad situation that can't generate enough income. So that's the concern.
In fact, the statistics show that there is a rapid growth of the inequalities, both income and wealth. So there are many people who are actually really concerned about this and who actually propose some kind of measures to address this issue. So do you have any ideas how we can address these inequality issues?
Right. I mean, my idea, and it's an idea that many people have talked about, is to eventually have some kind of a universal basic income, so that everyone is guaranteed at least a minimal income. Not at least initially it will probably be quite minimal, but maybe enough to survive. And that, of course, is a form of redistribution, because you'll have to fund that. You'll have to raise taxes, and the taxes are going to fall disproportionately on the wealthiest people. So it is a way of, you might say, taking money from the wealthiest people who are doing very well and giving at least some of it to the people that are not doing so well. But right now there is already a mechanism in our economy that does that, and that is jobs, right? I mean, jobs are basically the way a business gives money to regular people, and then in turn those regular people can go out and buy the things produced by the business, and that's how the cycle of our economy works. But in the future, if there really aren't enough of those jobs, or if the jobs don't pay well, we need to supplement that. We need to find another mechanism to replace that, and I think a basic income is one great way to do that.
Okay. I think basic income idea has been discussed for a long time, and in fact, few European countries actually experimented it. But in terms of the kind of the generalization and put that as a kind of in practice might take some time. So in your view, is there any way to expedite the kind of discussion on this issue in the global level?
Well, I mean, I am trying to expedite the discussion by going around and attending conferences like the one I'm here in Korea for, and I talk to audiences and try to get them at least thinking about this and having an open mind about it. But as you say, that a basic income has been around for a long time as an idea. Even back in the 1930s, people like Friedrich Hayek, the economist, was talking about a guaranteed minimum income. It's a big change socially. I mean, we it's part of our values to value work, right? That if we feel if people aren't working, they're very lazy, then we look down on those people, right? And there are good reasons historically to do that, because we needed everyone to work.
Yes.
Or we would have all starved, right? There wouldn't have been enough food. But that could change in the future, as machines and technology are capable of doing more work and there are less opportunities for people to work, then we have to adjust to that. We have to adapt, and I think a basic income is the way to do that. But right now what we see are some limited experiments in different countries around the world, but at some point in the future maybe we'll see a country actually adopt it, but that hasn't happened yet.
So your point actually leads me to the point that there must be some important role for the government to address this issue, because taxation issue itself is a kind of government issue. So in your view, what kind of works government should do to actually maximize the benefit of digital transformation and to mitigate the kind of risks coming from this digital transformation?
Right, and that's one of the main reasons I'm very strongly in favor of a basic income. And I mean, think about it. If all of this has a big impact and it begins to impact people's lives, and voters in democracies are worried about their livelihoods, they will expect government to do something, right? They're going to say, government, do something. And there are two basic paths the government could take, right? One would be to slow all this down, to have regulations, to not allow robots that replace jobs or to slow these technologies down. I think that would be a bad thing because that would deprive us of many benefits. Like, as I said, think about self-driving cars. Lots of jobs could be lost there, but it will also save lots of lives. We don't want to lose those lives, people killed in traffic accidents, in order to save the jobs. That's not a good trade-off. But if we don't find a way to adapt, then people will want to stop this. There will be a backlash politically. So the other alternative is the government finds a way to address this issue of inequality and the fact that people are going to be losing their incomes. And I think that a basic income is the best way to do that. So I hope it will become the future solution. But as you say, it definitely is something that I think has to be done by government. It's not something that businesses can do by themselves or such. I mean, it will require involvement of government. So I hope that it will become an important trend in the future.
Indeed, the role of the government is very important in the wake of digital transformation. But at the same time, as you rightly pointed out, because of this technological unemployment is growing, so there must be some role for the companies. And at the same time, to individuals to actually raise their skills level to match the demand coming from this digital transformation. So in your view, what are the things companies can do to actually take advantage of the benefit of this artificial intelligence and robots, at the same time to make contribution to the society as a whole? And at the same time, from individuals' point of view, what kind of things they should do to survive in this transformation?
Right. I think that whether you're a company or an individual, what you have to realize is that any kind of work that is fundamentally routine and repetitive, where you come to work and you do basically the same kinds of things again and again, those jobs are going to be very vulnerable to automation. And it doesn't matter if it's in a factory or if you work in an office sitting in front of a computer. All that kind of work is going to be susceptible. That's just the reality. So I think that what individuals can do and what companies can do to help them is to begin to transition away from that and do things that are not routine. And that would include, for example, things that are creative, things where you're really coming up with new ideas, generating, building something new that wasn't there before, thinking outside the box. Right now computers are not especially good at that. Another area that's very important is working with people, forming relationships with people. And so there's some professions like a nurse, for example, where you have to have empathy for patients. I don't think that robots are going to replace a nurse anytime soon. So those kinds of roles where you really build sophisticated relationships with people. In the business world, it might be the kind of job where you work with clients, on a deep way. These jobs are going to be relatively safe. So what people and businesses want to do is form a path so that people can move to those kinds of areas to the extent possible. Another third area that's relatively safe are things that really require lots of mobility and dexterity, and this would be things like the skilled trades, plumbers and electricians. We're not going to see a robot that can do what a plumber does anytime soon. It's too hard for the robot, because the environment is very unpredictable and there's so much flexibility required there. So, these are really the jobs that are going to be relatively safe in the future. So as individuals, we want to sort of retool ourselves to move in those areas to the extent possible. Having said that, I think that not everyone will succeed at that. Some people will be left behind and find that very difficult, maybe because they don't have the right personality to work with people and so forth. So that's the reason we also need that safety net. We also need that basic income. So these are ideas that kind of work together.
Let's talk a little bit about platform economy, because digital economy is often characterized as platform economy. And this platform economy actually gives power to the companies which own this platform. So the companies left behind, or the companies provide things, services or goods on this platform, they are not making a lot of profits. So how could we address this issue, the inequality or inequity in the platform economy issue? And what should be the way forward?
I mean, it's difficult because in some areas, I do think there are going to be some situations where regulation is called for. Many people have said that companies like Google are really like utilities now, right? They're like the electric company, and the electric company is generally in most countries subject to a lot of regulation, as is the telephone company. And so that may be part of the answer. But definitely the whole phenomenon of platforms is incredibly important, and it's important especially because of what I'm talking about, which is artificial intelligence. What we see is that those companies that control a platform own all the data that's produced on that platform. It's just enormous amounts of data, and that data is really the resource that makes artificial intelligence possible in the way it is today, at least. So lots of data together with smart algorithms is what really produces these advances, and that's why you see that the companies really driving advances in artificial intelligence are Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Baidu, right? These are platform companies that have enormous amounts of data. So one thing to worry about in the future is that these few companies are just going to get more and more powerful, and it's going to be harder to ever upset that. And that may eventually be, good reason to have some sort of regulation, although where I live in Silicon Valley, people aren't going to be happy with that. They don't want to hear that, but that may be the reality going forward.
Okay. I think the balance between regulation and ensuring free research environment is very important. We put regulation for a reason, so if there would be a good social reason to introduce or to maintain regulation, then we should do that. That's the kind of reason we have laws and regulations. Let's ask about privacy issue, because you emphasize the importance of data. And data actually enables these platform companies to generate a lot of market powers. But when you look at this issue from the individual privacy point of view, we do not know how our data are actually used by these platform companies. So what should be done to protect the individual personal data? And so we can trust the system and we can believe that our data, personal data, would not be exploited by these global giants.
Right. I mean, that's a big problem. I don't know a specific answer. I think it may absolutely be one area where you're going to need to see regulation, because that data is enormously valuable. And as you say, without any kind of oversight or regulation, it's going to be used in ever more creative ways. There are smart people thinking about, what they can do with this data. And it is true that these entities, like Facebook in particular, I mean, people spend so much of their life on Facebook. In China would be Tencent. Everyone uses WeChat, right, to do everything. So the information that they have on individuals must be unbelievable. So I do think that there's a call for regulation. And the thing is, it's going to get more and more powerful and disruptive in the future. Soon we're going to have facial recognition technology. You'll be walking down the street and cameras will see you and know who you are and where you are and maybe deliver advertisements to you and things like this. So it's going to get more and more disruptive. So I do think that solutions are required there, and it's an issue that should be giving a lot more attention, I think, in the political arena, so that we can come up with solutions.
Let's going back to this artificial intelligence issue, because many people that in terms of narrow artificial intelligence, everybody agrees that there will be a huge development. But when it comes to the artificial general intelligence, AGI, there are different views. Some people argue that we will not achieve AGI in a few decades. But some people, like Mr. Kurzweil, he actually forecasted that we'll hit the point in 2040, something like that. So what's your view about this technological singularity?
Right. I believe it's possible. I mean, I believe that artificial general intelligence is possible. I mean, the way I look at it, the human brain is a machine, a biological machine, but I don't see any reason you couldn't build a similar machine in another medium, in silicon or something. I mean, there's no scientific reason, no physical law that would say that can't happen. My sense from speaking to people researching AI is that most of them believe that. They believe it can happen, but they also don't believe it's going to happen very soon. I mean, I think that at a minimum, it's certainly decades away. I would say, personally, if I were to guess, I would say at a minimum 30 years or more away. Now, you mentioned Ray Kurzweil. He actually thinks we could achieve human-level artificial intelligence in 2029, which is really not very long, is it? I mean, it's already 2017, and 2029 is what, 12 years? I doubt that, personally. I don't think that's going to happen, but there are people that are very aggressive that believe it could. So there is a debate about that, but I think ultimately it is possible, but don't let that distract you from the fact that narrow artificial intelligence that we're certainly going to have is going to be very disruptive, in particular with regard to the job market and to more routine, predictable jobs.
So let me ask you about the relationship between this digital transformation and country, Korea, because you come here to deliver your message to Korea, and Korea is one of the leading countries in the ICT sector. So some people believe that Korea is very well positioned in this whole digital transformation process, but at the same time, some people pointed out that Korea's ICT development is biased to the manufacturing. So it's just a lopsided development. So it does not have a kind of competitiveness in software and artificial intelligence. So it should put more efforts and investment on this software stuff to be a leader in the future digital economy. So what's your view about the future of Korea and the digital economy?
Well, you know, one thing I hear as I travel around the world a lot is that everyone sort of wants to be like Silicon Valley, right? And they want to have their own Google. And, you know, that's not realistic, right? I mean, Silicon Valley is kind of a unique place where these things first developed. And actually, I don't think that's so important, because the technologies that are built by Google and by Facebook and so forth are going to become utilities that everyone can use. So it's not so much a question of being the one to create those technologies as knowing how to leverage those technologies. And I think that I do agree that Korea is very well positioned. Certainly your strength in manufacturing is going to be very important, because a big part of what all of this is going to be in robots, in actual physical robots in factories and in other places. And you certainly got a leadership position there. You've also got a very skilled workforce. I think that you know, a very educated workforce that is probably going to be well positioned to be able to adapt to this. So I would say that like every country, you need to embrace these technologies, but you also need to be very much aware of the potential for disruption and the fact that you need to develop solutions and adapt your society to all of this. And that's maybe the most important thing for Korea and for every country.
I do believe that ensuring flexibility in economy and society as a whole is very important to be a leader in the digital economy. Let me ask you the final question. This is not the kind of question, but I would like to ask you if you can pick up a few things which you can actually help our viewers, because our viewers, the viewers of the leader, this program is a kind of one of the leaders of the society. So if you can advise them to take certain role for the future of the digital economy, what kind of recommendation do you want to make to our viewers?
Well, I would say most important, educate yourself on these issues. If you are a leader in business or in government, I think that the impact of artificial intelligence and robotics is maybe going to be the biggest thing that happens in the coming decades. It's going to be a hugely important thing. So no matter what your role is, I would say that it's crucial to be aware of these issues, to educate yourself. You don't have to become a technical expert, but you have to understand at least, you know, the framework that we're talking about, understand some of the vocabulary, the terminology, and understand what these technologies are truly going to be capable of. Because I think that as a leader, you will be the ones that will have to figure out the solutions and how we all adapt and continue to have a thriving society in the face of all these changes.
로봇이 가져올 미래의 세계는 멋진 신세계일까요? 아니면 인류의 종말을 가져오는 디스토피아일까요? 한 가지 분명한 사실은 로봇과 인공지능 기술의 발달로 인류의 일자리가 위협을 받고 있고 지금도 많은 일자리가 대체되고 있다는 사실입니다. 우리 자신은 물론 다음 세대를 위해서라도 미래의 변화에 대응할 수 있는 방안을 적극적으로 마련해 나가야 되겠습니다. 오늘 함께해 주신 마틴 보드 씨 감사합니다. Thank you very much.
Thank you.